everybody, my name's Elise Hudson and I'm a candidate for District 3 Metro Council here in Nashville. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about Nashville Next, what it is and why it's important. So Nashville Next was a strategic plan put together by the city of Nashville that really explains where they expect the most growth and development to be happening in the next 20 or further years in Nashville. And that's important because they need to really understand how can we manage the growth that's happening as we're becoming the IT city, and where can we put all of our resources in terms of infrastructure, really focus on how we're spending that money and where it makes the most sense. So part of Nashville Next really found that the eastern and the southern parts of Nashville, Davidson County are going to be expected to have the most growth over the next few years. So Nashville Next was also referred to as the plan or the policy. Sometimes the parts of Nashville Next, the community character manuals, are referred to in it as well. So anytime you hear somebody talking about plan, policy, or a community character manual, that's really referring to Nashville Next. Nashville Next was adopted in 2015, in June of 2015, after several years of really working with communities across this county to make sure that communities had input in the decision making that was going to be happening as they knew growth was happening faster and faster in Nashville. So there were over 400 meetings from 2012 to 2015 before it was adopted. And within District 3, Whites Creek, the Whites Creek neighborhood, had the highest number of neighborhood attendees of any of the neighborhoods within Nashville, making sure that really people wanted to have an input on keeping Whites Creek rural and making sure that any development that really had the same character that kept our natural resources and the beautiful rolling hills and trees around us, made sure that they were protected in the long run. So when you're talking about property, there's two main pieces of property. If I'm a property owner, I want to know what my zoning designation for that piece of property is and what the policy is. The policy, again, refers to Nashville Next, but the zoning really has to do with how that particular property can be used, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, and then how much density can be on that piece of property. For instance, if you're zoned RS20, then that's residential, single-family houses only on 20,000 square foot lots. So the policy comes into play generally when you're changing the zoning on a piece of property. And the way that the law is written, there's actually a lot within the policy itself that defines what you can and can't do and what the nature of that land use should be. And so each district, it's not by a council district, but each area of town has its own community character manual. And within District 3, there's two different community character manuals that we have to refer to that has land in District 3. There's the Whites Creek, the Bordeaux Whites Creek Haynes Trinity community character manual, and then there's the Parkwood Union Hill community character manual that are sort of subsections of Nashville Next relating to our district. And District 3 is the second largest district geographically, so we go all the way from around Briley Parkway all the way up to the county line near Ridgetop. And so very large area, lots of different diverse communities and neighborhoods that have to be taken into account when you're talking about what that strategic plan of smart development is going to be in the future. Each community character manual describes a set of policies that could apply to a piece of property. Most of them have to do with whether you're rural, suburban, or urban. And then there are other types of policies that are very specific, like conservation. So in an area that has water, a creek, a lake, steep slopes and hills with a lot of forest, those areas can be listed as conservation areas. And then the surrounding area that you could potentially build on would have some specific type, like a rural or some suburban type policy attached to it. And each community character manual will go very in-depth into that particular neighborhood and what the intent of keeping that neighborhood rural or suburban means, even sometimes pointing to certain areas of the neighborhood geographically to say, hey, you need to take a look at this area, or this area is in transition and may need a little bit more special attention when you're addressing how development should happen. The policy can also talk about things that are similar to zoning, but a little bit more specific. For instance, within a rural designation and policy, you could have rural neighborhood maintenance, which means that the intent is over the next 20 or 30 years that that community would stay rural. Or you could have something like a suburban neighborhood evolving, or T3NE distinction, which means that today it's suburban, but in the future they know that that's going to be really moving towards becoming more urban and needing more services and infrastructure as Nashville grows. And so all of that was really planned out with painstaking detail, with community members, with organizations, with the different government agencies that provided their input over the 3 years before Nashville Next was adopted. It's important that we look at Nashville Next in the intent, because when we're talking about our budget and spending for Nashville, we really want to focus on areas of growth that would need infrastructure instead of just sort of addressing infrastructure or capital expense requests as they come in. The intent was to say, okay, we know that in the outer parts of Davidson County, we're going to need some more fire stations. We're going to need potentially 4 or 5 additional fire stations over the next few years to address the growth that's coming into that area. And that's really important, to make sure that as we're growing as a city, that we get the types of services that cities are supposed to provide for their neighborhoods, and we do it in a smart way that includes how people's safety are taken into account, making sure that you can get first responders within a certain amount of time, making sure that developments aren't happening out of character of the surrounding areas, and then we're not really changing the way that Nashville looks and feels and the quality of life that people have without due process and input, and making sure that we're making those smart choices about how development happens. I think that the city council is sometimes people underestimate how much control and how much influence the city council member has on how planning and development happen within the city. So about, I'd say the vast majority of bills that come in front of the Nashville City Council right now are planning and zoning related. Any changes to existing zoning have to go through both the Planning Commission and the City Council for a vote. And most of the time, the person who is the council person for that district in which the change is going to happen really has control over whether that will pass or not. They're the ones that would potentially sponsor that bill to be heard in front of the City Council. And so generally, the other council members will defer to the person who lives in that area and was elected from that area as to what the needs of the citizens in that district are. So the city council person really has a lot of control about what's happening and what the future policy and zoning looks like for their districts and their neighborhoods. And that's part of why I'm running for city council, because I think that we need to really pay attention to what kind of smart development can we have, what kind of development can we build that's creative in a way that addresses our need for additional housing, for places that people can live, for the people who live and work in Nashville and make it the it city, but that their quality of life is still good, that they have access to the types of things that they need, and they can enjoy the amazing landscapes around here that really make this part of Nashville so very beautiful. You can learn more about Nashville Next on my website at eliseforcouncil.com. Also reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you want to shoot me an email, you can contact me. There's a contact button on the website, so that'll send me an email and I can answer your questions there if you have anything further. So I hope you will tune in. We'll have some more informative videos about how planning happens in Nashville and what that process is and how you can help, because anytime there's a change that's going through with the Planning Commission, there's an opportunity for public feedback, and I want to make sure that our district has that feedback before decisions are made. So thanks so much, guys. We'll talk to you later.